Here are the world's most dangerous hobbies. These forms of pastime will seem like death wishes. Number 8. Whitewater rafting. Rafting seems like a fairly easy activity, as all you do is navigate waters on an inflatable raft. There are, however, different levels based on river difficulty, with all the higher classes involving white water or other bodies of rough water. The environment varies, and participants have to face a multitude of challenges while maneuvering through the rapid currents and big waves, all while avoiding smashing into huge rocks and hazards. The dangers stem from both environmental and behavioral factors. Rapid rivers usually have fallen branches, trees, as well as dangerously high waterfalls. If a person falls off the raft, one of their limbs could get caught in an entrapment, leading to serious injuries or death. Injuries are common in the form of broken bones and twisted ankles and knees. Statistics show that half of all injuries occur inside the raft, so even if you don't fall off, you're still not totally safe. For this reason, whitewater rafting is certainly a hobby reserved only for adrenaline junkies and thrill seekers who don't mind getting hurt. Number 7. Rock climbing. In the eyes of a rock climber, all mountains exist to be climbed. The goal is to reach the summit without falling, something that requires the greatest amount of strength, endurance, and balance. On top of that, the activity also tests the climber's concentration and mental control. It is sometimes hard to comprehend why someone would choose such a perilous hobby, as every element of this activity poses a great risk. A fall could easily lead to death or serious and paralyzing injuries. Relatively minor injuries come in the form of broken bones or torn muscles and ligaments. Weather changes can also be lethal, as wet rocks from rainfall would become slippery and hard to grasp. If that isn't enough, some climbers would go even further as to remove all safety equipment, trusting only their bodies to make the climb. This is known as free soloing, and a climber would be supporting their entire body weight using just their fingers and toes. All it takes to slip is one small mistake. In 2014, 36-year-old Brad Parker proposed to his girlfriend atop Yosemite's Cathedral Peak after the pair had successfully made the climb. The experienced climber described it as the happiest day of his life. Unfortunately, it was also the last day of his life. As the couple went different ways in the park, Parker went ahead to climb another peak without ropes, and climbers saw him fall to his doom. His body was recovered by park rangers the following day. Number 6. Scuba diving. Scuba diving seems like a wonderful hobby, where one gets to observe rich underwater marine ecosystems up close. Experiencing beautiful marine life and coral reefs is definitely something worth spending time and money on, and scuba diving has now become a popular recreational hobby, with increasing numbers of enthusiasts around the world. But as wonderful as it sounds, scuba diving is not without its dangers. Ascending upwards at a fast rate will lead to decompression sickness, also known as bends. Bubbles may form and grow in the diver's body, causing damage by distending tissues and blocking blood vessels. Also, there is always a risk of running out of oxygen if you're not careful enough, or running into dangerous predators lurking in the waters. If you'd like to take it a step further, there's an extreme form of scuba diving where divers visit underwater caves. Cave diving is much more dangerous, as the currents are unpredictable and visibility is greatly impaired by sediments clouding the view. You could also easily get lost, and once your equipment fails, it would be the end. In 1994, South African scuba diver Dion Dreyer drowned in the underwater caves of Bushman's Hole after passing out due to what was assumed to be oxygen toxicity. His dead body remained unrecovered for a decade. In 2004, renowned Australian scuba diver David Shaw attempted to recover Dreyer's corpse after 10 years. Unfortunately, not only did Shaw fail, but he himself was killed in the process. The very next day, both bodies floated up near the surface and were retrieved. It was Shaw's 333rd dive of his career. Number 5. Bull riding. Bull riding is a rodeo sport where a rider tries as hard as he can to stay mounted on a bucking bull for a certain period of time. The idea seems simple, but staying on top of an angry beast trying to buck you off is no easy task. Out of all rodeo sports, bull riding has the highest rate of injury and accounts to half of all traumatic injuries suffered by rodeo contestants. Still, bull riding is a great favorite among men wanting to show off their manliness. Not only would a rider risk falling hard on the ground, there is also the high possibility of being trampled on by the bull, which could weigh up to 2,000 pounds. And let us not forget about the horns that could easily rip a hole through a fallen rider's body. In July 1989, professional bull rider Lane Frost had completed a successful ride on a Brahman bull in Wyoming. After dismounting, the bull turned and hit Frost on the side of his body, causing him to break several ribs. Frost managed to get back on his feet and waved for help, but this time he was gored directly in the chest by the bull's horn, puncturing his heart. Doctors found the heart injury irreparable and he was pronounced dead. Number 4. Bungee jumping. What could go wrong with jumping off a cliff or bridge with a big elastic cord attached to your feet? Apparently quite a lot, and the activity is not as safe as some think it is. The thrill of such a hobby comes from both the free fall and the rebound. After falling headfirst to the ground, the jumper would fly back up as the elastic band recoils, and the person would continue to go up and down for a while until they stop. The injuries involved in bungee jumping could happen due to a mishap or happen regardless of safety measures. For instance, a slight error in measuring the cord's length could result in the jumper slamming into the ground. The safety harness and cord could also break under poor maintenance, or if the jumper's weight is miscalculated. Also, whiplash injuries could occur, as the jumper is jolted back up suddenly, leading to a broken neck and subsequent death or paralysis. Numerous other problems have happened related to cardiovascular problems due to the abrupt rise in blood pressure. This has occurred in young and fit people with no previous medical problems. The aforementioned mishaps have all indeed happened, leading to many recorded deaths and permanent injuries for bungee jumpers. For instance, in 1986, back when modern bungee jumping was still relatively new, stuntman Michael Hush died instantly of multiple injuries after his bungee rope sprang loose from its eye bolt. The bungee jump was performed for a stunt on a BBC television show, and the tragic incident led to the show's cancellation. Number 3. Heliskiing. The name itself pretty much explains what it is all about: skiing down a snowy slope after jumping off a helicopter. The reason why you need a helicopter in the first place is because this extreme sport is only performed at off-trail areas that are otherwise not accessible by any other means. Passionate thrill seekers would often have to book a year in advance to leap off a helicopter onto snowy peaks far away from human inhabitation. The perils faced are mostly related to unpredictable forces of nature, which include weather changes, avalanches, and tree wells. Stranded skiers would have a difficult time surviving in the unforgiving temperatures, and rescue attempts are extremely difficult. The helicopter rides themselves are dangerous, and only experienced pilots are used. In August 2015, 58-year-old Australian Roger Greville got buried in an avalanche while heliskiing near Queenstown, New Zealand. Greville was the only one struck by the avalanche in his group. He was found quickly by rescuers, but despite efforts to save him, he was soon pronounced dead at the scene. Number 2. Highlining. We all know about tightrope walking, the skill of walking along a wire or rope between two elevations. Highlining is the extreme version of that, where the walking is done outdoors between skyscrapers, gorges, rock formations, or other natural and man-made structures. Highlining is not just simply tightrope walking on a higher elevation. The wire is often not stabilized and taut, and crossing a slack wire is much more difficult than a tight one. Plus, there is the absence of a safety net, and the winds at high altitude could easily blow a highliner's balance off. A safety harness is usually present, attached between the body and slackline itself. But even that cannot fully guarantee a skywalker's safety. In April 2015, American daredevil Dean Potter attempted to walk across a skyline 3,000 feet above the Yosemite Valley floor without any safety gear. A dramatic footage of the insane attempt showed how he lost his balance and fell. Luckily, he managed to quickly encircle the rope with his legs and then pulled himself back up with his arms. He returned to the starting position and immediately made a successful second attempt. Unfortunately for Potter, it seemed like death did not like being cheated. He died the following month in a wingsuit flight accident in the very same valleys of Yosemite. Number 1. Wingsuit flying. Imagine jumping off of a tall structure, and rather than falling straight to the ground, you glide through the air like Superman. Wingsuit flying is a sport that does just that, using a wingsuit that adds surface area to the wearer's body, thus enabling a significant lift, enough to keep the person in the air for a long period. The wingsuit flyer usually starts by dropping off a base jumping site or exiting a flying vehicle. The gliding activity would then end with the deployment of a parachute. The sport is not something someone could just try on a whim. The activity is extremely dangerous, and only those with an experience of at least 200 skydives are allowed to legally try it. Fatality rates from wingsuit flying are extremely high compared to other extreme sports. Ever since its inception, the sport has caused many notable deaths of well-known extreme athletes across the world. One of the most popular incidents was that of Dwayne Weston, who tragically ended his life in October 2003 in a wingsuit flying accident in Colorado. The 30-year-old Australian was an expert skydiver and holder of the 2002 base jumping world title. He attempted the wingsuit flight by jumping off an airplane while ignoring safety regulations, which required him to carry a reserve parachute. Weston intended to go over Cannon City's Royal Gorge Bridge, but instead hit its railing after miscalculating the winds. The tragedy was witnessed and filmed by spectators on the bridge. Pia Fadenkampf seemed to have a rather good life. The IT worker from Michigan was known as a bright and fun woman, despite having solitary tendencies. She traveled regularly and often sent postcards to her family from all the places she went. But suddenly, everyone stopped hearing from Pia, and she was nowhere to be seen.